the 10-step method to fix your circadian rhythm. You can take all these 10 tips, or you can take a few of them. The bottom line is, when you look on the internet, there's everything everywhere. You've got Huberman talking one thing, you've got Rogan talking another. What do you choose? Well, here's the playbook. First and foremost, if you're trying to reset your circadian rhythm to get better fat loss, better muscle, overall sleep, overall just longevity benefits, overall wakefulness, gradually moving your wake time and sleep time by 15 minutes every day is the way to go. Stop trying to make these giant leaps. Oh, I need to go to bed at 8 p.m. So you go to bed at 8 p.m. when you're used to going to bed at 11 p.m. Bump it up to 10:45. 10:30, 10:15. Let your body do the work. And remember, a lot of times you're tired because your entire circadian cues are out of sync, not just because you're sleep deprived. I'm sure you are sleep deprived too, but getting these cues lined up is the most important. And it's not going to happen by taking like one clear big jump. Number two, eating at the right times. There's a study that was published in Current Biology that really illustrated this well. Okay, they had subjects delay when they would eat from the time they got up by either a half an hour or 5.5 hours. So basically they'd get up, they'd either eat a half an hour after getting up or up to 5.5 hours after getting up. And remember, this wasn't fasting. They weren't like doing this on purpose. They were just delaying their food and eating later into the day as well. They did this for 23 days in a sleep lab in controlled settings, controlled environment. And what they found is that by delaying their food and eating the whole thing later, breakfast and on, they ended up delaying their plasma glucose levels, their postprandial glucose levels, 5.69 hours. So their glucose was elevated for significantly longer periods of time, way too late into the evening. Okay, not to mention they affected what is called PER, pair 2, and BMAL, the actual like mRNA, the gene expression that needs to occur for proper circadian rhythm. They delayed that by over an hour. So simply eating later delayed the entire circadian biology by over an hour, which dramatically impacts sleep. So the bottom line with this one is, if you're having trouble sleeping, and you're having trouble getting on a pattern, shuffle everything early. All the way down to even just not having dinner. Shuffle everything as early as you can so that you have a chance for PER2 and BMAL and these circadian genes to actually upregulate. Which leads me into number 3, and I'm not just saying this because I lost weight with fasting. This is really cool because you can literally just do a 4-day stint of early time restricted feeding and reset your circadian biology significantly. This study was published in Nutrients, and it was specifically on early time restricted feeding for 4 days, where they had subjects either eat between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. Those that ate between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m., they shut off eating at 2 p.m. Within 4 days, their circadian cues and circadian biology was back in line. Not to mention their cortisol levels were spiking at the right time and at normal levels, and their overall clock genes had regulated. So everything came into balance, including melatonin, clock genes. Also, they lowered their 24-hour fasting glucose, which can have an impact on your sleep as well. So the good news is you don't have to become an intermittent faster. You don't have to be someone that like stamps that everywhere and shouts it from the mountaintops. You could do a 4-day sort of overhaul and reset your circadian biology quite significantly. You combine that with eating majority of your calories in the morning and tapering it off as the day goes on, and eating as much protein as you can, and you're gonna be in a pretty good spot. I also, for the heck of it, I put a link down below for 30% off your entire grocery order through Thrive Market. It's relevant because they have specific foods that I recommend for when people are breaking a fast and things like that. But the bottom line is, they're a sponsor on this channel, and they give you 30% off your whole grocery order. So that means whatever you load your cart up with in that first order, 30% off plus a free $60 gift. So it's a full-on online grocery store that delivers all the groceries to your doorstep. Again, they've been a sponsor on this channel for I think 6 years now. They're probably one of the original sponsors. So they are true. I am indebted to them for all their support here, but they also provide all the people that watch this channel with really good bargains on their groceries. So check them out, top line of the description underneath this video. Let's talk artificial light for a second. There was a really interesting study, this is wild, in artificial biology. Okay, they had subjects go camping for a week. Hey, have some fun, go camping, but no screens, no phone, no TV, no artificial light. They found within 1 week that their bodies had completely reset to the point that their internal clocks would turn on at sunset and turn off at sunrise. Our internal clocks are what keep things going when we don't have external cues like sunlight and food. So the internal clocks naturally turned on at sunset and were off at sunrise. And those that were more prone to being night owls actually had the biggest change and actually become early birds. So night owls, I'm a night owl chronotype. Well, when they went ahead and they got rid of all the screens and everything like that, they actually wanted to go to bed earlier and get up the earliest out of those people. That is fascinating. So if you were to sort of go camping and do early time restricted feeding for like a week, you'd probably reset it all and come back to normal. But that's not always practical for people. So let's talk about number 5, which is going to be natural light first thing in the morning. We hear Huberman talk about this, and you've probably heard some of the mechanisms here, but I'm going to reference some that he doesn't necessarily mention. The body's internal clock actually ticks at a slightly different time than the real clock. Our clocks tick at about 24.2 hours, not 24 hours. So if we were in a dark, dark cave with no light at all, each day we would slowly be getting up about 10 minutes earlier. 7 o'clock, the next day 6:50, 6:40, 6:30, 6:20, so on and so on, because our internal clock without any external cues is ticking at 24.2 hours, while the rest of the universe and the world is going at 24 even. So what natural light does is it stops our out of whack internal cue, and it allows the cells in the brain to stop producing melatonin. It stops it in its tracks. So that's one thing, it stops the melatonin production to begin with. But then it gives us the cortisol boost that we need. It's another reason why working out in the morning can be good if you're trying to reset this. You get that nice cortisol boost from the light, and that resets and stops melatonin and wakes you up. But here's what's really interesting. Our body has an interesting clock where melatonin will start to be produced almost exactly 14 hours after we wake up or get our first light. So if you roll out of bed and you just say, I'm gonna go get some light for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, drink my coffee outside, that alone starts a timer in your body where melatonin will kind of kick in about 14 hours later. Happens at 6 a.m., well, then you can expect about 8 p.m. a nice surge in melatonin that puts you to bed around 9 or 10 p.m. perfectly. But it also goes in line with avoiding evening light, which I know, I'm not gonna tell you to like turn off the TV and stuff, it's impractical. But there was an interesting study in Scientific Reports. There was an interesting study in Scientific Reports that had people expose themselves to light between 6:30 a.m. or 6:30 p.m. rather, and 12:30 a.m. They did either dim light and then late evening bright light for a couple hours, or bright light in the early evening, dim, and then bright light again. What was interesting is that having bright light early in the evening, like around 6:30 p.m., actually helped offset having bright light later in the evening. So basically, the more that we can soak up bright light earlier in the day and earlier in the evening, the better and more resilient we will be later on in the evening if we expose ourselves to more light. So if you're gonna expose yourself to blue light and lots of TV, think of it as, how do I counterbalance this with more natural light as early as possible? To sort of streamline this even more, it takes me to number 7, the quick use of red light therapy. This is wild. People don't know that red light therapy actually increases melatonin specifically, but it's a quick intervention that a lot of people throw under the bus because they don't like the term biohacking, but utilizing red light is like a concentration of the right wavelengths to produce melatonin. So I know some people say use red light therapy in the morning. I've been a big fan personally of doing it right around 7:30 or 8 p.m. My routine is put the kids to bed, and my wife and I kind of trade off which kid we put to bed. We have a boy and a girl. If I'm putting the boy or the whatever, I put one down while she's still putting the other one down. I go and I take 15, 30 minutes, whatever, and I sit under the red light. Sometimes I literally position it on the bed in a weird way where it's right over my face. Next is going to be hot and cold therapies. There was a study that was published in Physiological Anthropology, found that heat diminished slow wave sleep and REM sleep, which we know sleeping in a hot environment is not good, but cold has no impact. You thought I was going to say it improves it. See, what it is cold just has no impact, so it allows our body to just be normal, but heat disrupts it. It's kind of interesting, unless you get so cold that you have a stress response. Albeit, a lot of people that I know, including myself, have success by cold plunging a couple hours before bed. Why is this? Cold plunging a couple hours before bed for maybe just 1 minute, 2 minutes, a short dip, it's going to increase adrenaline, but then you're going to have an adrenaline dump, which actually might encourage you to fall asleep easier. For someone that's a little high strung like myself, it works. Now, heat therapy works too because it improves that glymphatic system. So it actually flushes metabolites out of the brain and allows you to relax. So I cold plunge for 1 to 2 minutes a couple times per week, and then I get in the sauna immediately after, just until I'm warm, not until I'm dripping sweat in this particular case. Number 9, if you want a hard reset of cortisol, you want to work out first thing in the morning. The earlier in the morning you work out, the better you sleep. And the later in the day you work out, the more negatively it can impact sleep. But bottom line is, if you want a hard reset on your cortisol, nothing's going to work better than just rolling out of bed and doing a hard workout. So all these things kind of tack together. Finally, number 10 is the last banger, and you don't have to do it. Using melatonin supplements in the range of 1 to 5 milligrams for 3 to 5 days could be hugely beneficial for an initial reset. If you do this along with these other things, you run the risk of overshadowing the natural production. So this might be the best place to start. Start with melatonin supplementation, see if that aligns, and then start implementing all these lifestyle things. If I had to give an order of operations with this, I would say try the natural light and the fasting and the eating earlier thing. That's going to be the biggest, most low-hanging fruit to reset things. Then bring in the red light therapy, then bring in some of the other light manipulation and whatnot, and of course, changing your bedtime. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.